So in the second session, we're going to be just refining the forms that we established in the first session of the little course that we're doing, this Sketching Clouds course. So if you've watched through the first one, and if you haven't, I recommend you do it. And as always, if you're subscribed to the channel, you won't miss out on any videos that are coming up. So if you watch through the first video before moving on to this one, that'll give you an idea of where we've got up to or how we've got up to this point. Or if you're confident just kind of working something up to this stage, you can start from here. What I'm basically doing today is just developing these forms. So adding essentially a bit more detail into the clouds, but we don't want to think about it exactly as detailed just yet, because for the time being we're kind of focusing on larger shapes and not really small shapes, kind of bigger undulating forms within the clouds. And also sort of how they separate out from the sky behind. So this portion just in here that I'm sketching at the moment is actually the dark sky behind. We want to start to make it a bit clearer what's the sky and what's a cloud. That often has to do with making sure that the sky is going to be more even because it's a bit more of a gradient, and anything that's a cloud is a bit more varied. So we want to make this gradient sort of fall behind in a way that logically makes sense behind the cloud. I'm still just using this piece of soft nitrum charcoal, so any kind of soft willow charcoal that you have is good. And I'm going to use that for the duration. There's going to be one more session after this, so we're not going for a super rendered drawing of a cloud. We're just looking at partly cloud forms and how sort of the edges of clouds differ from other forms, where they're hard and where they're soft. And also the relationship between the cloud and the sky behind. So the clouds are sort of part of the sky, but they're also distinct from it, particularly in this sort of instance where we've got this blue sky behind. So we've then got this foreground cloud. And if you've only just joined this workshop, actually, you can get the reference. If you need it, the reference is available in the description below. It's just a reference I found on Unsplash, which is always a good source for landscape studies. Or you can use your own. You can also work from your own, so you could use a completely different cloud drawing if you like. You might find it a bit easier just to copy along with the one that I'm using initially. Also need to go just a bit darker below the cloud as well. And this is important because the brightest part of the drawing is definitely the center of the cloud. That's my sort of focus today, is just to make sure I get a slightly better statement of the kind of overall form or forms in the drawing. Particularly that sense that this is sort of where the brightest parts of the cloud are. So I have to sort of push everything around that a bit darker in order to give the impression that we've got this glowing cloud. I can also use the eraser in terms of evening stuff out. Say down here, it seems like maybe gone a little bit too dark with these little cloud forms. So I can kind of unify the lighter shapes of the clouds by erasing into them a little bit. Like that. So you can see that cloud form sort of pops back out again now. Now, particular sort of emphasis today is going to be these sort of secondary forms within this larger one. So we've got this sort of gradient that drops down from this darker shape up top and then kind of blends into the lighter part of the cloud below. So down into here. And next time we'll be looking at even subtler blendings, but certainly initially I just want to try to get these. Now everything's kind of roughly sorted outside, and maybe go over some of the darker bits again. And have a look at some of these internal kind of cloud forms. You can see this layering of clouds is starting to appear. We've got lots of smaller ripples within that as well, but today we just want to generally get the larger ones in place. So hopefully you can see there's starting to be some kind of clearer bits of form being established, which is what we're after. And again, I'm kind of trying to make sure I'm working the sky behind the cloud as well as the cloud itself. That's what sort of starts to establish that sense of depth in the piece. can go in and erase the highlights out of these smaller forms now when needed. And if you over erase, that's not usually an issue. You can just do something like this, so just another pass back over where you erased, just a light pass. So yeah, that's not too bad, I think, in terms of these medium forms. So you can sort of see what I mean in terms of just gradually developing the sort of secondary forms within the larger stuff that we initially stated last, or in the first session, if you watched the first session. And leaves us next week the reasonable platform to kind of build on, and really focusing on maybe making some of the parts of the cloud a bit smoother, creating a bit more of a kind of central focal point. The last thing I'm going to do is just another pass over, just making the tones where necessary a bit darker. So up here I just want to go so really heavy and dark, and they don't have to be as smooth, the tones I think, but So yeah, we'll leave it there for this session, and we'll be moving in. Next time will be the final session on the piece, and the last one before the summer holidays as well, in terms of these video series. So yeah, that should be a good one, hopefully. As always, you can subscribe to keep up to date, and be able to kind of go back through all the videos on YouTube. And if you want to find out the sorts of longer courses that have qualifications attached, you can visit the OCAD website for all that info, and that link is in the description as well. And if you need the reference, as I say, the link is in the description too. But yeah, that's it for today, and I'll see you guys in the next session.